We dove deep into the 90 pages of the platform of the Democratic Party, and we watched the Democratic Party's convention. Today, we will break down what is the party's program and what do they promise to do if they win the elections in November. We did the same with the platform of the Republican Party a month ago, and here we are again with my colleague Ben Bayer in the podcast of the Ayn Rand Institute. We will not only present to you the plans of the Democrats, we will also try to present to you an alternative of what would an opposition to such a platform look like, an opposition based on the principles of liberty, the principles of individual rights. So Ben, before we go into the specifics, here is my first thoughts about how the Democrats view themselves. They want to portray themselves as the normal party. So looks like, at least on the level of rhetoric, they've moved away from the excesses, from the madness of 2020. I'm sure in the preamble of the platform there is this mention to anyone in the United States is on land that used to belong to tribes, to Native Americans. But, there are no mentions to institutional racism. There are no mentions to defunding the police. Actually, they claim that it is Trump who wants to defund the police. And their convention was full of American flags. And if there is one term, one concept, one word that keeps coming back time and again, both in the platform and in the convention, it is the word freedom. So Ben, why are they so eager to present themselves as the party of freedom, and what does freedom mean for them?
Yes, Nico, so I think they're trying to make themselves look like the normal party, and they're trying to make themselves look like the American party with this imagery and with the constant reference to freedom. And freedom really was, I think, the theme of the platform document, which we'll look at today. It was a theme of the convention, especially, I think, day 3. There were lots of speeches that brought this in, including Harris's own. But I'll start just by highlighting, I think, the statement in the platform document that pulls together a number of the things we're going to talk about today. And the way in which it's pulling them together is part of what we need to discuss and analyze. But page 45 of the platform statement, the author writes, Trump and Republicans are already ripping away Americans' hard-won freedoms. Reproductive freedom, freedom from hate, freedom from fear, the freedom to control our own destinies, and more are all on the line in this election. And frankly, Nikos, when you put it this way, this sounds, at least to me, pretty good. I'm in favor of freedom. I'm in favor, at least in some sense, of all the freedoms that are mentioned in this statement. But the question is, what do they mean by it? And we'll learn more about what they mean by it and whether it makes sense, not only by looking more at this document, but I think also by looking at some excerpts from speeches that were given during the convention.
So let's start with the star of the convention. Let's start with a quote by Kamala Harris.
And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. In this election, many other fundamental freedoms are at stake. The freedom to live safe from gun violence in our schools, communities, and places of worship. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and live free from the pollution that fuels the climate crisis. And the freedom that unlocks all the others, the freedom to vote.
So I think it's interesting that of the 3 short excerpts about freedom from different speeches we're going to look at, the one by the presidential candidate is the one that, on a surface level at least, I think sounds the best. I could spin each of the things she says here in a positive way if I wanted to, though even here there are big question marks that should come up about some of the things that she's saying. And So start from the top. Reproductive freedom, the right to choose an abortion. That is obviously a big issue in this election, with Trump having appointed the judges that overturned Roe v. Wade. And if you know anything about the Ayn Rand Institute or about things I've written, you know that in our view, yes, the right to choose an abortion is a fundamental freedom that derives from a right to bodily integrity, that derives from our right to individual freedom from the forceful interference with our pursuit of happiness, with the woman's pursuit of happiness. Only individual human beings have rights, not embryos. So abortion is, yes, definitely a fundamental right. The fact that this is the first thing she mentions, I think, is on purpose. It's the point that resonates the most with people who actually do have a pro-American conception of freedom. But from that point on, things get a little bit more, at least, ambiguous. So freedom from gun violence. Yeah, you should be free from gun violence for the same reason. It's forceful, destructive interference with your life and your pursuit of happiness. Now, of course, it's a good question. What's not being mentioned here is, well, what are we going to do to establish freedom from gun violence? Is this a question about gun control, or is this a question about more police protection? It's not specified, and there's probably a reason for that. Freedom from pollution. Well, it's certainly good to live a life free from pollution, good for your health. But of course, we're now not talking about the same kind of freedom as above. There's some fudging going on here. We're not talking about freedom from forceful interference with your life, unless somebody's actually out there trying to poison you with this pollution. Instead, we're talking about the side effect of industry, which is otherwise necessary for human life, and certainly not an intended side effect. So that's a bit of ambiguity as well. And then we end her statement with a discussion about the freedom to vote. Well, there is a right to vote as a citizen under the current Constitution. I imagine that what she's implying here is an estimate of the January 6th attempt to overturn the 2020 election results, which certainly was fraudulent, certainly was outrageous. We've analyzed that previously on this podcast. I would say, though, it's not quite in the same family as the other rights we've talked about. The right to vote as the right of a citizen is not a fundamental right in the way that Harris is here implying. Civil rights, like the right to vote, are means to the end of the protection of your fundamental individual rights. If you have a government that is elected, it is more likely to be subject to the preferences and the interests of the citizenry, and therefore more likely to protect their rights. But it's not a fundamental right in the way that the right to life or liberty is, and it's why children don't vote. It's why non-citizens can't vote. So the fact that she's packaging these together with the other kinds of rights is at least should raise some questions. The questions get even bigger, though, in some of the other videos that we wanted to look at, some of the excerpts.
Yeah, it looks like to me, Ben, that her point is that things that are important for the Democrats, for example, abortion, which is indeed an important topic, but every topic they put it under the label of freedom. So probably they view a gap. They see that the Republicans are not big on the promotion of freedom. We saw that on the analysis we did on the Republican manifesto. So they view it as an opportunity. But as you said, we will see now a second clip by Tim Walz, the hopeful, the vice president candidate. And we will see that he's way more liberal with the use of the term freedom. Let's watch the second clip.
Because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom. When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations free to pollute your air and water. And banks free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall.
So he's echoing some of the same points that Harris makes, but there's a few even bigger wrenches in the works here, echoing the points she makes about reproductive freedom, pollution, gun violence, each of which are still ambiguous, some of which are at least ambiguous. But then what's this part about Republicans think you should be free for banks should be free to take advantage of you? Is the implication then that you really ought to be free from such being taken advantage of? What are these ways in which banks are supposed to be exploiting us and taking our freedom away from us right now? Are they defrauding us, pretending to loan us money they don't actually have? That would be an infringement on freedom. I don't think that's what he has in mind, though. If you scour the Democratic platform, the closest thing you can come up with is that there's a complaint that banks charge overdraft and bounce check fees that are too much. So is the idea then that you should have the freedom to spend other people's money with impunity? That doesn't sound like anything like freedom from forceful interference with the pursuit of your life. It sounds like an infringement on someone else's freedom. And the same kind of question comes up then when he references having the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. Now that's ambiguous. Are we talking about being free from certain laws that are going to ban certain kinds of procedures? That would be real freedom. But as you should know if you know anything about the Democrats, especially if you look at their platform, which has extensive sections on the so-called right to health care, that's not a right to be free to choose your health care and to pay for your health care. It's the alleged right to have other people pay for your health care, to have free health care. And Democrats want to do this. They're supporting many existing policies that are based on this concept. They also want to expand the Affordable Care Act. They want Medicaid expansion at the state level. All of this amounts to forcing other people to pay for your health care, which means forcible interference in their life, in their pursuit of happiness. And so there's something very tricky happening here, packaging genuine freedom from the interference with your life with the right to interfere with other people's lives. There is a very tricky package being built here, and it really comes into the open in the last clip we'll look at.
And Ben, some people understand it as a distinction between positive and negative freedom, which is freedom from coercion, negative freedom, or positive quote-unquote freedom. Spoiler alert, the Democrats understand it as quote positive freedom, and we'll see it now when we see the third clip by Governor Josh Shapiro.
You know what, Democrats? We are the party of real freedom. That's right. The kind of real freedom that comes when that child has a great public school with an awesome teacher because we believe in her future. Real freedom that comes when we invest in the police and in the community so that child can walk to and from school and get home safely to her mama. Real freedom that comes when she can join a union, marry who she loves, start a family on her own terms, breathe clean air, drink pure water, worship how she wants, and live a life of purpose where she is respected for who she is.
So a lot of the same stuff in that clip, but different emphasis this time that I think is interesting, because you get the same stuff about freedom from pollution and gun violence and so on. But the first thing top of mind for Josh Shapiro, what real freedom is and what makes the Democrats the party of real freedom, is public education, ? That's your idea of real freedom, is getting a free education from the state. That's bizarre, both just as rhetoric, even, because is that the first thing most people even think about when they think about what it means to be free? I mean, I guess it means it's a good example of what it means to get something for free. But then, especially when you actually think about what public education means, that it involves not just coercing taxpayers to fund somebody else's education, but also the state getting involved in the realm of ideas. We've done podcasts on this recently. I did one with Sam Weaver, where it is now the arbiter of what doctrine is to be taught as true, thereby also infringing on not just economic but intellectual freedom. The public schools are a travesty of freedom. They're actually an infringement on it on multiple levels. So the fact that this is the top of mind example for Waltz is I think an elegant symbol of what's going wrong here in the Democrats' idea of freedom. And it's not just, I think, it's not just some kind of innocent mistake on their part. There is, as I was averring earlier, there's a deceptive trick that's being used in their concept of freedom. They are packaging together different kinds of, quote, freedom that are simply not the same. It's revealing that Harris's statement about freedom uses examples that are the least controversial, the ones that best connect with the American conception of freedom. Freedom from violence, freedom to pursue your happiness and be free from someone forcing you to have a child. But that idea is to take the valid concept of freedom, the idea of individual freedom, freedom from force to pursue your life, freedom from the negative of force to pursue the positive of your life. They're packaging that together then with this illicit concept of freedom, where there's an alleged freedom to take from others what you allegedly deserve because of your need. And they're arguing it amounts to a kind of argument. They say, well, you deserve freedom from violence and forceful interference. Therefore, you also deserve this kind of freedom to rely on other people's hard-earned money to fund your life. And that is a devious, what Ayn Rand would have called a package deal, packaging together things that are essentially different for the sake of smuggling in this invalid concept and thereby, in the end, negating the valid element of the concept. Because, of course, when you promote a kind of so-called freedom that forces other people to fund your lifestyle, you're negating the freedom of those other people. Yet it's a devious package deal on the Democrats' part. I have to say, it's quite politically brilliant because it has the effect of appealing to an actual core American value in a way that is inspiring to many people. The language of freedom is inspiring. And then on the side, they drape it in all kinds of pop culture references to freedom. We've got songs, music from Beyonce and Aretha Franklin, upbeat music about what's good about freedom. And that's the package they are now presenting, what's in effect the socialist welfare state to Americans. It's not just devious and politically brilliant because of the way it's calculated to have an effect on an American audience. It's also pretty smart on their part because they're noticing something, I think, about their opposition. And Nikos, you mentioned that in the last podcast we did on the Republican platform, one of the things we noticed about the Republican platform was just how little reference there was to individual freedom. Or to freedom of any kind. Like the Republicans didn't even make a lot of reference to made-up forms of freedom. The whole moral content of that platform was sorely lacking, especially any kind of recognizably American moral content. And so I think what's happening here is the Democrats have got to be noticing this omission or default or oversight or negligence on the part of the Republicans, and they're saying, let's make the most of it. Let's capture freedom for our purposes. And, this might help them win the election, I got to say.
Man, how fast the climate has shifted, right? When we did the episode on the GOP conference, we basically presented it as a celebratory conference. It was a few days after the attempt on Trump's life. So the momentum was clear that the Republicans would win. Biden was still the leading on the other side. But Anyway, that's for another discussion. But it's clear that the Democrats see the momentum shifting, or they want to present the momentum as shifting, and by presenting freedom as a key ingredient of their program, they want to capitalize even more, again presenting themselves as the American party. Now, besides freedom, what is another theme that we see time and again in their agenda? The second theme is presented in the following way. So it's the theme of equality. And here's how the platform presents it. America, quote, America is the only country on earth built on an idea that all people are created equal. We've never fully lived up to that, but we've never walked away from it either. End of quote. Now, I think this quote to me shows two things. On the one hand, again, they try to present themselves, we are the party that understand what it is special to be American. But at the same time, it shows me that Democrats either they don't understand or they don't want to understand what Americanism really is about. Because indeed, it is mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, all human beings are born equal. But also, it is mentioned that we have a right to our life, our liberty, and the pursuit of our happiness. And without the second element, the first element, the fact that we're created equal, is toothless. It's not a robust enough defense of people's freedom. Now, it is true that unfortunately, even that part that says that everyone is created equal was not respected throughout big parts of American history. But I think, Ben, there's a reason why the Democrats want to focus on the we're all born equal part rather than on the liberty or the pursuit of happiness part. And this is because a key element of their program is a covert and sometimes not so covert egalitarianism, the idea that people should end up with if not the same results, but they should end up somewhere close to each other. And if there are differences between the results that people achieve in life, something is fishy, there's an injustice somewhere involved. How do you see their use of equality and of using it as a slogan?
I mean, I don't think this is really a separate issue from our previous discussion about the package deal of freedom that they are using. Just like they are trying to cash in on the American notion of freedom, they're trying to cash in here on the founders' notion of all men being born equal, but they're doing it in a way that smuggles in a very different idea of equality. The equality concept they're using is itself a package deal. So what is it packaging? The valid element is the notion that the founders were talking about, the idea that human beings have equal rights, that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's the right that was in fact violated. These are the rights that were in fact violated when, for example, there was slavery in this country. The problem there wasn't fundamentally a lack of equality, it was a lack of equality of these rights, that slaves had their liberty taken from them. And the allusion to the fact that we haven't always upheld this ideal, I think is primarily a reference to the history of slavery. But there, the natural opposition to slavery is freedom. Freedom, again, understood in the individualist sense of having the freedom to pursue your life, free from the forcible interference of the government or of the slaveholder. So that's the valid notion of equality. They are packaging it together here with a kind of metaphysical equality, the idea that people need to have equal resources, equal abilities, equal opportunities, even equal outcomes. And of course, nobody is born equal in this sense. It's not just that people shouldn't be born this way, it's that they aren't and can't be, but just by the nature of reality. And so this form of equality is a kind of objection to reality, to the so-called tyranny of reality, to the fact that people are metaphysically distinct from each other. And since, of course, it's a fact that people are not born with these kinds of equalities, if you want to at least try to pretend that they can be made equal, and it is still just a pretense, the most that you can do is then violate individual freedom by taking resources, exploiting abilities, depriving opportunities from other people who have them, and thereby, again, depriving their liberty in order to redistribute it to the people who don't have them. And that is not just a corruption of the founders' idea of equality, it is a corruption of, obviously, their idea of liberty as well. And Nikos, I got to tell you, like, this is another case of we read the documents so you don't have to, because this is like a 92-page platform. And what it is in effect just a extremely long laundry list and litany of different government redistribution programs that are aimed at providing this kind of egalitarian equality. So, of course, you have the aforementioned right to health care. You have the right to a secure and dignified retirement. You have programs for every possible area of life, distributed to every conceivable sector of the populace, everyone from the disabled to artists to residents of the Northern Mariana Islands to the so politically marginalized residents of the District of Columbia. Oh, wait, no, they're not actually politically marginalized. And a theme that I see running through many of the programs especially is one that brings out the particular essence of the modern version of egalitarianism, the modern version of everyone needs to be in some way metaphysically equal. And that's, for lack of a better term, the DEI version of egalitarianism, the idea that there need to be these special privileges for allegedly protected racial and sexual classes. So just to give you some examples of some of the more eyebrow-raising government programs that the Democrats want in this vein. If we're to protect freedom, understood in their egalitarian way, we, of course, are supposed to protect, quote unquote, women's rights, not women's rights just because women are individual human beings, but because they're a protected class. And so that means there needs to be welfare legislation that forces employers to give pregnant women, nursing mothers, special privileges that other people don't have. Taxpayers need to fund subsidies for childcare, for postpartum care, for female construction workers. There's actually much more detail given for how women's rights, so-called, need to be protected through these various welfare programs. Then there are details given for how the right to abortion will be restored, even though they're cashing in on so much anger, justified, righteous anger about infringements on abortion rights in this country. A lot less thought put into that in this platform than on how many different programs we can farm out to protect alleged women's rights as a class, not as human beings. There's more. That's what we said about women. Let's move to the issue of race and ethnicity in their view and how that's protected. So even when at times in this platform they talk about the importance of merit-based federal contracting in order to restrain various forms of political corruption, they also explicitly, in a number of places in the platform, say federal contracting needs to be prioritized for women and minorities. To protect freedom, we are told that we need to be appointing judges who are people of color, who are LGBTQI+, as though you protect freedom better just because a judge has a certain ancestral origin or sexual orientation. This is a particularly debased version of egalitarianism where its essence is tribalistic, where the privileging of groups, the redistribution of welfare benefits is the focus of it is groups that are based on unchosen biological ancestral characteristics. And this is what people these days are usually calling wokeism, the idea of the woke movement. I don't particularly like that term because it stops us from calling what this movement really is, which is egalitarianism, which is the philosophical celebration of this kind of metaphysical equality, the attempt to pretend there is this kind of metaphysical equality when there isn't, and thereby the attempt to rob people who have abilities and advantages to sometimes only pretend to help out others who aren't. There'll be more to say about that.
It's egalitarian, as you said, Ben, plus racism, because let's call it what it is. This thinking where you view people as a representative of their group, that this judge is not an individual, but he's part of that particular community, this brings back the main element of racism. What is the main element of racism? It's not white supremacy as trendy intellectuals would want us to believe. Racism is first and foremost a way of viewing the world. In which way you don't view individuals, you view groups, you view avatars of one's identity. And we are recording this episode on the 28th of August. This is the anniversary of the historic speech by Martin Luther King. And what was the famous line? I have a dream. What was the dream? The dream was that he envisioned a future where people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And yet, what do we view throughout the platform of the Democrats? Judging people and considering it an achievement that they have this list. We appointed X number from X group and the X number from this other group. So people want to call it progressive racial thinking, but we should call it what it is. It is racism because, again, it reaffirms the central element of racism, which is judging people not as individuals, but as avatars of their group, as avatars of their identity, as member of groups.
Nikos, it's a really important point. It is not trivial. It's not just a point about what's the right way to frame this. And it's a point that is deeper than I suspect many people hearing this might think. Like the point here is not, though there's an element of truth to this, it's not that, these kinds of egalitarian programs are engaging in reverse racism because they're discriminating against white people. I think there's an element of that, but it's much worse than that, because the kind of woke so-called egalitarian activists who think of themselves as anti-racist, it's a big lie, because it's actually it is deeply racist, and in a straightforward sense. It's the idea that members of so-called various minorities are victims. They're necessarily victims. They're unable to help themselves. They're desperately needing help from the non-minorities who can really get things done. This infantilizes these people. It assumes that because they are members of some unchosen group, that therefore they don't have the ability to lift themselves up. I mean, it's true that, of course, that many members of minorities have suffered historical injustices. It's also true that many of them have lifted themselves out of that when left free to do so. And to the extent that these egalitarian programs are robbing everyone of actual individual freedom, making it harder for everyone to make a living, to profit from their own action, to open businesses free from regulations, everyone, whether they're a member of a minority or not, has their freedom taken away from this, has freedom taken away by these programs. And so to do that in the name of, some people just are biologically unable to actually think for themselves and live for themselves is not only counterproductive and destructive, it's racist in the most straightforward of sense. The freedom that we really need that relates to this topic is the freedom to be able to engage in your own agency, the freedom to develop self-esteem, the freedom to forge your own path in life, rather than being overseen by some kind of paternalistic overlord who thinks that you are an infant who's incapable of doing these things for yourself.
So what do the Democrats doing here? And this is their worldview. It's a worldview where the individual has no agency. And there is one point in their manifesto where this becomes clear. So the devil is in the detail. This is just one line, but pay attention to what it says, because again, it shows a lot about how they view each American. So they say, somewhere in a section regarding something on agriculture, quote, "The president believes that no one should have to leave the community where they grew up just to find opportunity. Now, the president believes that you should never leave your community to find opportunity. What an un-American idea. What an anti-American, actually, idea. Quite often, we actually do have to leave our community. If I have big dreams in life, if I want to, let's say I want to be an engineer in an oil rig, or I want to be a product manager in Apple, or I want to play in the NBA, obviously I need to leave my community. And what does it say about how the Democrats view the state? It's what we call the nanny state, the state that no matter how demeaning or no matter how irrational your expectation, supposedly the state should be there to provide you this opportunity. Of course, the answer is this is absolutely ridiculous. And actually, I think it undermines the intellectual capacity of the party's audience. I don't think even the radicals of the party would agree with this statement that, oh yeah, you should never leave your community if you want to achieve something in life. And again, what is the proper American spirit? The proper American spirit is what someone in the UK said: jump on your bike. If the opportunity is not there, create it or go and find it. This is the meaning of agency, that I can make things happen. That this world, I can change it. I don't expect the world to accommodate my dreams. I make my dreams happen. So again, this is a tiny detail, one simple line from the manifesto, but it shows a lot about how the Democrats view the state, but most importantly, how they view the individual.
Yes. Nikos, you brought this line up that I initially didn't notice in my reading of the platform. It's buried in a section about agriculture. So you might wonder, why are we talking about agriculture after just having talked about racism? But I do think it's actually significant in the way that you suggest. And this idea that, no, we're born in a certain place. We're bound to the land that we were born on. It's the same primitive, traditionalist attitude that leads to racism. It's the idea that you are a product of factors before your birth that you didn't choose and can't be expected to rise up out of them. And so it's the exact same of paternalistic infantilizing, here in particular directed toward farmers, but the same attitude they're directing against members of minorities. It's a revealing line. I think it's something that the Democrats in this case are getting from the Republicans, who have a similar kind of infantilization of people in lower to middle class positions, and the idea that you're just part of your hometown. So yeah, I think it's really important to flag that. And what it also helps to underscore, I think, is that something that's true about the philosophical essence of egalitarianism as an idea. One way to put egalitarianism, I think the oversimplified way to put it, is that it is a reverence for making people equal in in opportunity and abilities and resources and outcome. The question is, how do you do that? And we already talked about, well, you have to take something from one person to give it to the other. But what does this really mean in practice? What it really means is that since the people that you're attempting to benefit or pretending to benefit, since you're not actually giving them any agency by which they can improve their own lives, since you're only giving them handouts, you're spoon feeding them other people's wealth, they're not actually going to improve in any meaningful way. So what it really amounts to practically is making people equal, but by dragging everybody down to the same level of mediocrity. And I think this is illustrated and concretized throughout the Democratic platform, especially by their attitude to wealth and to achievement and to business. The whole platform is dripping with resentment for successful people. It uses the fig leaf of Donald Trump, who is wealthy and just wants to selfishly exploit us for his own benefit and for the benefit of his cronies, I think it's a fig leaf because I don't think that's giving Trump too much credit. I think Trump is at a much lower level than that. That he's not authentically ambitious about business. He's never cared about production. He's cared about the image of success, not about what it actually takes to become successful. But practically speaking, what the platform amounts to is targeting the people who actually are productive, who actually contribute to prosperity and the creation of value, not just the ones who want the image of it. And so you see this, for example, in their political bromide. Wall Street didn't build America, the middle class built America. Well, yes, lower to middle class workers do the physical labor, but they don't know what to build or how to build it without the guidance of the mind, without intellectual guidance from scientists, from technologists, industrialists, and yes, from financiers who have to figure out how to muster the resources and build the capital to make long-term investments that will pay off, as opposed to government boondoggles that just destroy resources and lead people to consume them rather than to building something that actually benefits our lives in the long run. Those are the big banks that Waltz thinks are there just to take advantage of people. You see it in their attempt to penalize so-called big oil in the perverse name of developing abundant, affordable energy, even when fossil fuels are still delivering the majority of the energy that powers our lives. And whatever their side effects, they deliver the energy that is building the technology that is empowering our economy. And the Democrats have the audacity to complain about how big oil engages in price gouging, even while bragging about how they're going to charge them bigger royalties and put more costs on them. You see the same resentment whenever there's discussion, and Harris has been making a bigger deal about this recently, of so-called price gouging, which is a deliberately undefined concept that means little more than a price we don't like. That's even though a free pricing system is necessary to match supply with demand. And when prices are artificially held down, it means that someone doesn't have an incentive to create anymore, doesn't have an incentive to provide supply. It means there's shortages. It means there's lines. And what's especially audacious about the price gouging gambit is it's actually a distraction, because the reason that prices have been going up across the board is because of the inflation of the monetary supply to pay for all of the different welfare programs that Democrats want. They're using this, therefore, as a way to distract from a problem that they cause. There's a tight connection between egalitarianism and inflation. We've talked about that on previous episodes. And then there's the discussion of taxation. And Nikos, I know you wanted to comment on the so-called fair share that billionaires are supposed to pay toward taxes.
Yes. So in the platform, we read a line which for me was the most disturbing line in the whole platform. So at some point it says, quote, "To any American with the ingenuity and drive to make $1 million, President Biden says, great. Just pay your fair share in taxes." End of quote. So notice this quote, right? It involves a recognition that to make a lot of money, you need to have ingenuity, you need to have drive. It's not something easy. And in the very next line, it says, and now that you have done this special achievement, and now that you have done this thing which is quite difficult and praiseworthy, now you have to pay accordingly. In other words, the bigger your success, the more we'll take away from you. The bigger your punishment, if you want to put it in this way. And this is not an economic point. This is a moral point. This is a morality that says that the more you have, the more you owe to other people. The more you succeed, the more you owe to those who did not succeed. Why? Because they did not succeed. And maybe we find this infuriating, and maybe we find this as something which is not miles away from the morality of the radical left, the morality that says from each according to ability to each according to need. But the truth is that this is a moral sentiment that is shared throughout the political spectrum. because, again, this is not an economic point, this is a moral point. This is the morality of altruism, this is the morality of self-sacrifice. The morality that says the more you have, the more you owe. Why? Because. So, yes, this is envy for the millionaires. This is a recognition that we understand what it takes, but still we think you should be punished for this. And they can capitalize on this, and they can be sure that they will get away with this, because no one will stand up against this morality. No one will stand up against this moral abomination.
Yes, Nikos. And I think you're right to point out that great that you've succeeded, just pay your fair share. Well, if the fair share is substantially larger just because you've created more, the implication there is that you've only succeeded as much as you have because you've somehow exploited and taken it away from somebody else, and therefore you need to give it back. But it's just a perverse. You said it wasn't an economic point; it was a moral point. It's both. I mean, it's also based on a faulty understanding of economics. It assumes the Marxist point that profit is simply exploited value from the workers, when in fact, because of the fact that that value is created by the intellect, that all the muscular labor in the world isn't going to invent a light bulb or even take us out of the caves. There has to be an idea about how to put together pre-existing raw materials in order to create something new. That's what creates value that people see and then benefit from and want to pay for. And so it's not exploiting, it's not extracting use value, it is adding value. And therefore you're being, and the rewards that capitalists reap come from the value they created through their innovation. And it's not necessarily a scientific or a technological innovation. It could just be the innovation of identifying a new market that nobody had ever identified before, and a new way of meeting supply with demand. And so it's a moral economic point, because the morality and the economics come together here, that what meeting supply and demand consists in is itself an intellectual act, one that is admirable, one that should be celebrated and rewarded, because that is the thing that moves human beings forward. It's what makes human life possible. And so the last few examples that I have of cases where you see this anti-intellectual ability attitude, this resentment of success, are with the particular industries that some of these kinds of policies are especially being focused on. You see it being focused on pharmaceutical companies, so-called big pharma. Whenever you create a big in capitals name, it's always a pejorative. And the complaint here is that they are profiting from their life-saving drugs. And they're doing it in a legal environment that has dramatically restricted their ability to research freely and develop these drugs, which is, of course, what drives up the costs, which makes higher profits necessary in order to stay in existence and keep giving us life-giving drugs. And it's only in America where this is happening. The rest of the world has to derive a significant amount of its pharmaceutical innovation from American companies, which are able to do it only by profiting. And don't they deserve to, given that they're the ones who did the work and the thinking? So you also see it in their going after tech companies. We've talked before about some of their allegations that the tech companies hurt kids' mental health and cause political polarization and so forth. And yeah, there are challenges to any new technology, but what a new technology is a new kind of tool. And it's possible for people to abuse the tool or to use it to illicit ends. But and there are legal challenges that sometimes arise from this concerning liability, but to fundamentally blame the tool maker for the fact that they've created an incredibly powerful, valuable tool that they're giving to most of us for free is the essence of resentment of success and ability. And you especially see that coming out in the extent to which this platform focuses on, and you've seen Harris focusing on it again in recent days, the need for more antitrust regulation, for the idea that you need to be punished not just with a tax, but with actual criminal penalty, just because you've achieved market share, which means just because you've succeeded at meeting supply with demand, at finding a market that wants your product. This is a perverse idea, the idea that there should be competition, that but that successful companies are somehow anti-competitive because they've won the competition. You don't have a competition unless somebody wins, and to assume that competition is a kind of end in itself where nobody ever wins, and we tear down whoever does, that is particularly nihilistic, particularly aimed at dragging people down to a level of mediocrity as opposed to lifting them up all to the same level. And so it really does give the lie to the idea that egalitarianism is some kind of compassion for victims, that it's about pulling up the downtrodden and rectifying the injustice that they've been subject to. What it really is, I think we can see from this litany of resentful policies, is creating victims made to order, who out of a kind of resentment for success.
Ben, there are 92 pages of this program. We will leave outside of our criticism parts that we read and made our blood boil. The big lie that with renewable energy we'll have lower energy prices, the economic illiteracy coming back time and again, the wishful thinking about how to solve the crisis in the Middle East. But again, we're going to leave all this aside because just we don't have the time. Otherwise, this would be a 2-hour episode. But let's finish with what we promised our audience. What would a principled opposition to the statism, to the egalitarianism, to this resentment-driven economic program, how would a principled opposition to it look like?
Yeah, this is an important question to end on. And I think the first thing that an actually rational rival political party to the Democrats would do would be to take back this language of freedom, to take it back for what it actually means, to recapture the original American meaning of freedom, which means individual freedom from government authority, freedom from force to pursue your own life and happiness. And I mean, you don't even need to come out to make meaningful progress and reform in the current political state. You don't have to come out for laissez-faire. You just have to start to work to decontrol by offering concrete policy proposals to do that, to push us further, yes, in the direction of laissez-faire. I actually think this is what the Republicans were doing as recently as 2012. And if you go back again to the previous podcast where we analyzed the most recent Republican Party platform from 2024, one of the things we did there was to compare it to the 2012 platform that was under the Romney-Ryan ticket. And I think they actually were doing that. They were pushing us further in the direction of the American concept of freedom, and it had a lot of meaningful, concrete policy proposals to do that, in comparison with 2024's, where it's an anti-intellectual, tribalistic endorsement of statism, which is really tragic. So if the Republican Party could just go back a little bit to as recent as 2012, they'd already be doing better. Sadly, I don't see any prospects for that anytime soon.
And for people like us, Ben, who advocate freedom, we need to do it in a way that is courageous, in a way that actually claims the moral high ground. We shouldn't just defend freedom in terms of, GDP will raise 2.3%. It will happen, but that's not the main point. The main point is that freedom is an existential necessity. Freedom is literally an issue of life and death. We need freedom in order to live a good life. We need freedom to discover what will our life be about, what will we do in life. We need freedom to discover the secrets of the universe, to expand our knowledge. We need the freedom to think, the freedom to communicate our thoughts, the freedom to speak, but also the freedom to act. We're not just ghosts, as Ayn Rand put it. We have bodies, so we need to act, we need to produce, we need to create, we need to keep the products of our labor, and we need to trade. So this is why we need economic freedom. Economic freedom is part of freedom as an existential necessity. We need it if we want to pursue our happiness. So there's this very American, special American idea, uniquely American idea, the pursuit of one's happiness. And to do that, we need freedom. So this is what the defense, the proper robust defense of freedom would be. Freedom is not a luxury. It's not a shirt that we wear it on Sunday if the weather is nice. Freedom is for all times, and freedom is, again, something that we need in order to live life as human beings.
Yeah, there's a point about taking the moral high ground about freedom. There's also just the point about taking the moral high ground at all, about having some kind of positive moral values. Hopefully that would be an alternative to the phony morality of egalitarianism offered by the Democrats, because it's not just that the Republican platform doesn't celebrate freedom as a moral value. It doesn't celebrate any moral values at all, or any positives. It's entirely negative in its outlook, based on fear and hatred and resentment of enemies, whether foreign or domestic. I don't think it'll win just for that reason. I think this is why the Democrats who have a positive, it's an evil positive, they're not selling it for the negative that it actually is, but they're trying to sell it as a positive, and that motivates people and inspires people. And one of the other things that I think a rational alternative that Democrats would need to provide is to find a positive, to rally behind, a moral high ground to stake out that helps explain what actually is great about America. Not just making it great again as though it used to be, but it isn't anymore, but what's great about it now, what continues to make it great. And that is, in fact, freedom. That is what makes this a nation of individual innovators. It is, yes, also the same freedom that draws millions of other individuals from foreign shores in pursuit of their individual happiness on ours. It's what makes us a leader of the world, not because of our military might, though that's a consequence, but as an example, as a city on the hill, as Reagan used to say. You see the Democrats trying to take that idea as well. The Republicans have given up on it. If America is bad as they think it is, why is it worth saving? It's not clear. The Democrats seem to see, no, you have to motivate by positives. You have to try to make people love America. They've got the completely wrong understanding of what that means, of what actually does make America great. A rational alternative to the Democrats would identify that. They would identify it in terms of positive moral values. They would offer some kind of constructive path toward making us even better than we actually are. Sadly, today's Republican Party is not the one to do that.
People, if you enjoyed today's episode, here are some further sources to dive into. So there's an essay by Ayn Rand. It's in the Virtues of Selfishness, and it's called Man's Rights. It is in that essay, not only she provides a theoretical framework for what are man's rights, but also she analyzes the Democratic Party and its platform in 1960. So a similar framework that we try to apply today, Ayn Rand applies it to the Democrats of 1960. Also, an episode that we did around a month ago, analyzing the platform of the GOP. So the episode is Why Socialists Fear the Republican Party Platform. Now, if you enjoy this podcast, please consider subscribing to our channel. Click that bell to get notifications. We post new recordings quite often, episodes, talks from conferences, talks by Ayn Rand. You see in our channel lately, there's a lot of content and different types of content, and there are more changes, exciting changes coming on. Also, consider commenting under the video, enter the discussion. We try to read most of the comments. We reply to many of them. And if you have questions about today's episode, or if you have a comment, or if you want to see us cover a topic that we have not covered, please consider dropping us an email at newideal@aynrand.org. newideal@aynrand.org. We read your emails and we try to reply to them if we can. Ben, this episode was your idea. You put a lot of work on it, so a big thank you. Hopefully people are now have a clear understanding of what to wait from the Democrats, and many thanks to our audience. See you soon.